It's Slate Night, the Film Fan Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Corey and Mason.
Welcome to Slate Night, the Film Fan Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Mason Schmidt, here with my best bud, Corey Knudsen.
Hey.
As we get ready to drink beer and talk about movies, today, as per usual, we'll be discussing what films we've seen lately and what new releases are on the horizon, which we're not really all that excited about. We'll also provide updates on some physical media releases and some notable developments in the world of movies. But first, Corey, how have you been? And thankfully, we have a new beverage this week.
Woo!
What are we drinking today?
We've got an actually decent beverage today.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Actually, very good. It's a Gluek beer from Liftbridge Brewing Company out of Stillwater. Little Bohemian style Pilsener pale lager. I feel like they put every word of every style of
Every
beer.
descriptive word in there, yep.
No, this is really good.
It looks like beer, whereas last week was like smog, green.
I feel good this week.
Yeah.
I feel better. That's great. The only thing I'm not feeling better about is Hooters filing for bankruptcy soon, so that's kind of a bummer.
You never really preface or like give me a heads up to what you're talking about or what you're going to bring up and when I ask you how you've been. So
I like to keep you on the edge.
Yeah, keep me on the edge. I didn't know anything about Hooters. I've never been to a Hooters.
Dude, me neither. I feel like we got to make a trip. I think there's one in Mall of America, isn't there?
Interesting.
So maybe some week we go there.
Do they even have good food, or are you just going there for like the Hooters? Like
chicken breasts, hold the chicken, glass of milk, as Michael Scott would say.
And then Jim just
wow. Yeah, I don't know. So let's plan a trip. Maybe we'll do like a vlog at Hooters, and we can put it on our YouTube or something.
Crazy.
Yeah, that'd be fun, right?
We'll have to wait for a movie to be coming out so we can kind of coincide that with the release. So like, hey, before we go to see Last Showgirl, we're going to Hooters. Like,
yeah. I don't know what's coming out soon.
Striptease 2, Demi Moore is here again.
Yes,
yeah.
Whenever that happens. Let's do that.
Long-awaited sequel to Striptease, which, if anyone doesn't know what that movie is, I don't remember when it's from, but we had that DVD in our basement growing up, and it has Demi Moore sitting in a seductive pose, naked, and I was just like, I'm not going to watch this movie, but I'm going to stare at this case for a long time. Yeah. And also, like, saying shit like that, it registers with me now that I'm like, my family sometimes listens to this. Mostly my brothers, and they're like, nice. But, like, my grandma, whenever I see her at family get-togethers, she's like, you guys have a podcast. How do I find it? You don't, actually.
you don't have access to it.
You can't listen to it.
Your phone actually doesn't have that.
Your phone doesn't have Apple Music. That's crazy. Or Apple Podcast.
Yeah, it's so weird. I don't know how that works. I can't figure it out. But anyways, so we'll document our Hooters trip at some point. But so this week, I got around to seeing The Monkey, which you saw early preview for, talked about last week. Mm-hmm. I saw it. This is Osgood Perkins' follow-up to Longlegs from last year, which I really liked. Essentially, it's two brothers that are dealing with this little fucking wind-up monkey doll that just bangs a drum and then people die and weird shit happens. And they deal with that from childhood into their later years. Theo James is the star of this movie, and I'm going to start out there because he is great in this movie.
Yeah, he's the best
I think
part.
you mentioned, I don't know if it was on or off the podcast, that he would be a great Batman. I 100% agree.
Right? I didn't think about that until it's just his voice. He has the voice for Batman. He has the look, and also he gives, like, in this movie, he's phenomenal.
Yeah, he was really great, and I don't know that I've seen him in that much.
He was in, like, the Divergent series.
Oof, I avoided those.
I saw that movie. That was, like, a middle school date of mine. Like, seeing that movie in, like, what, 7th or 8th grade?
That's like a classic middle school. Like, it was Hunger Games, Divergent, and, like, I don't know, some other shit. Maze Runner.
Maze Runner,
that's
what
big
it
too.
was.
Yeah. So, yeah, I wasn't really familiar with him, but he was great. And he kind of does some narration in this movie, like Robert Pattinson and the Batman. So I'm like, I can picture this. That'd be kind of cool. But he plays a couple roles in the movie, and I think he was the standout and my favorite part of this movie because overall, this one's a little bit, I don't even know, like, disappointed. I wasn't that, like, pumped going into this movie. I was like, I just want a solid enough horror movie. And I think it's enjoyable enough, and it has some fun kills. There's, like, some deaths that are kind of funny, which I always appreciate. But this is based on a short story from Stephen King, and you can tell that they really stretched out the story because the runtime doesn't warrant the amount of like story that seems like it was available. Mm-hmm. It's an hour and a half, which it's typically I'm like, sweet, a movie's an hour and a half. That's a great length. But this movie, I'm like, wow, this is just a stretched out script with not much in here. There's a like father-son dynamic in this movie that I didn't really care about all that much. It's kind of like it's supposed to be the emotional crux of really the second half, and I just didn't really dig it all that much. It's a good little supporting cast. Tatiana Maslany, Elijah Wood in there, pretty fun. But yeah, I don't know. This one, I like Longlegs a lot more than this movie. I think that just has a lot more to it. Yeah. I like the genre of that as well. And I think the tone of the monkey is interesting. I think Osgood Perkins delivered on what he wanted. I just wasn't quite on the same wavelength with it. Mm-hmm. But I know a lot of people in the theater were enjoying it. They were laughing a lot. They were enjoying it. Whatever. The humor didn't quite work for me as much. There's a couple funny moments, but not as much as everybody else seemed to be liking it. So I don't know. This one, I think I'd give like a B-, somewhere in that range. Mm-hmm. It's not an awful movie, and like there's worse things you could watch, and like it's an enjoyable enough movie, but not something that really stands out. Mm-hmm. Not for me personally, anyways.
This movie, I'm happy you saw it, and your reviews tend to align with mine. I posted the review on our Instagram, and I gave it a B-, which like there's things in this that like worked for me, but overall the whole of it didn't. And I was pretty disappointed with this, only because it was on my top 10 anticipated for 2025. I've had a lot of those movies quickly get checked off throughout like the first part of this year, so seeing The Monkey, I was super stoked. And then it is definitely more a horror film, and I think Longlegs in the horror aspect is a better horror film. This is more comedy. I agree with like kind of the movie not having enough story to support its runtime. There are some just like driving scenes, like it just feels like they're padding for time in moments, or like character interchanges and like dialogue interchanges that I'm like, this conversation doesn't need to be happening. Like I don't get the point of it. The reveal towards the end of kind of who's to blame or who's at the center of why this monkey keeps going off and all these deaths keep happening I didn't care about it once I found out what was going on. I was like, okay, like it felt too easy and almost forced. The humor is a little unbalanced, inconsistent. I get, like you said, I get the tone that they're going for, but it didn't always work for me. And I feel like some of the jokes were too easy. But with that being said, it feels almost like a Final Destination movie, because like the best part of this movie for me was just like some wild, bombastic deaths and just a lot of the people, like the characters within the film, their reactions to the death. Those were some of the funniest moments. Like there's a cheerleader scene that I mentioned to you last week when we talked about this, when I saw it, that there's a dead body getting wheeled out of a house, and like this cheerleader group is randomly there and like, oh, they're bringing the body out. And it's like, okay, that part makes me laugh, but there's some just odd humor. Elijah Wood is his performance and his small little bit part in this movie, he is perfect. And that part of the movie, I'm like, yes, this is good. This is wild. But yeah, and the emotional, or like the emotional connection dynamic of like the father-son and them throughout the especially that second half of the movie, that didn't really like hook me either. So overall, I remember feeling a little bit disappointed by Longlegs as well. So Osgood Perkins, like both of your movies, your most recent movies, I've been so sold by your marketing campaign. Then I go see the movie and I'm like, wow, your trailers were better than the movie. But as I've gotten further away from Longlegs, I've come to appreciate that movie more. As I'm a week removed from The Monkey, I'm like, you know what? I'm going the other way. I'm like, yeah, no, I actually really didn't care for that movie, and I don't really plan on rewatching it, even though some of the kills are really enjoyable. The performance by Theo James is great. So, yeah, I'm happy you got to see it. And again, I'm not surprised that you and I agree on it. I was just hoping that hopefully you would either like it a little bit more, because I've seen reviews of people being like, I love this movie. And like my theater experience, a lot of people were laughing too and having a good time. And I've seen some people be like, fuck this movie, like it's not good. And I'm like, wow, okay, it's kind of weirdly polarizing for overall how well it's been received critically as of yet. So I'm excited to kind of see what the staying power for The Monkey is and kind of the legacy it will have after this, because a lot of people keep throwing like the cult status title on it, like, oh, it's gonna be a good cult classic. I'm like, maybe it doesn't feel like special enough. It doesn't feel like idiosyncratic enough. Like it has an interesting tone it takes, but and you mentioned the narration by Theo James. I don't think that was horribly necessary in the movie. I think that they could have done away with that sooner, and that his narration is always so dour and serious, and I feel like that leads to a lot of the tonal inconsistency or issues I have with the tone of the movie throughout. I'm like, if you didn't have that, it might make it easier for me to laugh at some of these jokes you're saying, whereas like he's so to the point serious character, and it's some of the humor comes from him being a serious dude in a what the fuck situation, but it's like it's not clicking for me. But again, happy you saw it. I didn't go to the theater a whole lot, actually, this past week. I went to the theater once, and it was last Monday, which was President's Day. I got the day off of work, and I was like, you know what? This is my time to knock out all of the short films that are nominated for Oscars at the 97th Academy Awards coming up now a week from today, which I can't fucking wait. Oh, my God. My favorite day of the year is a week away. So I spent all day at the theater. I saw the live-action short films. I saw the Oscar-nominated animated short films, as well as the documentary short films. Corey tagged along and was able to watch the animated short films with me. I briefly wanted to touch base on the live-action short films. I've never done what I did this past Monday of going and seeing all these short films in theaters. It's something I've always wanted to do. And I've seen shorts in the past, just like when they showed up on streaming or just like odds and ends, found them online. And I've seen different Oscar-nominated shorts, but this time, like, going in and getting the experience of just back-to-back short, and just kind of having that relentless experience of just a new story and, like, the conciseness of these stories, which I actually really appreciated. The live-action shorts, those nominees are Anuja, The Last Ranger, Alien, or Alien, depending on how you're going to read it, The Man Who Could Not Remain Silent, and I'm Not a Robot. I specifically wanted to recognize, I enjoyed every single short I think I really saw throughout the day, all 15 of them. But in the live action category, Alien and I'm Not a Robot blew me away. I'm Not a Robot was my favorite short I saw all day in terms of, it was the best live action. It was just such an interesting concept, and I think that they did so much with it in terms of having a concrete beginning, middle, and end to a story that takes place over like 20 or so minutes. Where some of these other, like Anuja, The Last Ranger, they kind of have, The Man Who Could Not Remain Silent, they have a good setup and a good premise, but then it feels like it's trying to be a proof of concept. Like there wasn't like a concrete end to some of these, so I'm like, it doesn't feel like a concise, put together beginning, middle, end short film. It feels like this is the beginning, more to come. And I saw that especially with Anuja, which, again, I enjoyed all of these, and the viewing experience was really good. I had a packed theater, surprisingly. I saw these all at the Main Cinema, which another shout-out to the Main Cinema in Minneapolis for just being an awesome indie art house theater that just shows a bunch of movies that you couldn't really find elsewhere. But, yeah, I'm Not a Robot blew me away. That's out of the Netherlands. Alien, I think, will likely win this award. It is pretty topical. There's some political messaging in it. Although it's brief, you can sense what it's about. It's about a man kind of going into a government facility to get his green card, and ICE is there, and it's just a lot of that exchange and what's happening with people trying to get their citizenship in this country. So there's a lot of political messaging in there. They briefly try to show it, but it is a short film, so anything brief in a short film is going to have more staying power just because it is a shorter runtime. But regardless, I really like the live-action short films. Corey, I don't know if you're really going to see a lot of these, but if you did, the ones I would really push to you, the three of these five I would push to you are Alien, The Man Who Could Not Remain Silent, and I'm Not a Robot. I don't know how you're planning on seeing these, if you plan on seeing them, but those would be the three that I'm like, these are must-see shorts, and I think you'd be satisfied with all three of them.
Yeah. I'll have to see if they pop up anywhere on streaming, or I know sometimes like a few will drop on YouTube randomly or something, so may try and catch those. But yeah, like you mentioned, I joined you for the animated short films. That was the middle portion of your busy President's Day, busy Millard Fillmore Day.
Yeah. You just like to bring that up. We were at trivia once, and you just randomly knew a trivia question about him and got us points, which was great. But it's also like, why the fuck do you know?
I'm gonna correct that a little bit. I didn't know they asked a question about who's the 13th president of the United States, and like we were just in the group and we're like, we don't know. We're trying to think of the old heads that were back in the day. And just for some reason, Millard Fillmore popped in my head, and I'm like, guys, I think it's Millard Fillmore. Didn't really know. And then it ended up being right. So I just feel like a connection to Millard now.
You shouldn't have corrected that. You should have just owned that, like, yeah, I knew.
I just want, like, I don't know. It was just like I think the soul of Millard was speaking to me. Yeah. Also, a great name, Millard. That's cool. Like that's just
it's strong, I guess.
Tell me somebody now that you know is named Millard. Like, bring back some of these old names.
It feels like Mildred. Like Millard.
The male version of it. Yeah.
Millard.
Mallard.
Mallard. That's what I get from it now. So it's like I can't think of Millard. I don't know anyone named Millard.
Anyways, shout out Millard Fillmore and his descendants.
I don't think anyone would anticipate a name drop of him on this. But all right, whatever.
Yeah.
Fuck it.
So that's instead of going to see all the shorts with you, I was celebrating Millard.
Fillmore specifically. Only him on President's Day.
Celebrate privately a little bit. So
I celebrated Taft in my bathtub.
Yeah, attaboy.
Yeah, I got stuck and made some stains. Anyway, Corey joined me for the Oscar animated short
Yeah, the animated
section.
shorts. Do just a quick run through of these. Beautiful Men. 3 bald guys go to Turkey to get hair transplant. In the Shadow of the Cypress, dude's trying to get a whale off of his property. Magic Candies, Japanese kid takes LSD candies. Wander to Wonder, little dolls start fire to their dead owner's studio. And yuck, a bunch of horny kids get boners, but not really.
Kind of succinctly, yeah.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed these. This was my first time going to any of the shorts that they show in theaters. And it was a really cool experience just to like do this one at least. Just seeing them all back to back was really fun. The ones that stood out to me, Wander to Wonder, I thought was hilarious.
So funny.
And just a cool idea. Like, this is kind of the only one I'll dig into a lot, but it's like this guy that creates a show with like little dolls or like puppets, kind of figures, whatever. And he ends up dying. And then
in the studio,
so his body's just laying there, and these like figures, these dolls are like, it's like Toy Story essentially, where they're just kind of sentient, and they're like, what do we do now? Like they're still trying to like put on their show, and like they're just starting shit on fire, and
see
just
some clay animation penis.
Yeah, it's just a lot. Like I don't know, it was really funny and like a very cool idea. And that's the one that stuck out to me the most. Beautiful Men, I also liked. I thought it was. As somebody with like not a great hairline, it kind of I resonated with me.
I don't have a great hairline, and seeing like 3 men with just like pattern baldness, like trying to figure out like, oh no, we only booked 1 reservation to get a hair transplant, and all 3 of them were like, well, who fucking gets it?
Like
basically.
Bart, who I need this. Yeah. So that one was funny, and I think the ending to that one actually stuck the landing. I needed it to really hit home the ending, and I think it did in a good subtle way. So those are the 2 that stood out to me. Also, Magic Candies, very cool idea. I mentioned my kind of jokey synopsis of it, but it's like this kid is like taking these candies, and then these things will talk to him. So like his couch talks to him, and then like his dog. That's a fun idea. I liked it. So that was another one I enjoyed. I know you liked Yuck, which I wasn't as crazy about, but that was your favorite, right?
Yeah, that was my favorite. And honestly, it was so cool just seeing, especially the animated shorts, just because of the difference in animation styles within all of these. You kind of get the 2D animation with In the Shadow of the Cypress, which was stunning. Like all of these were stunningly made. Magic Candies is what we started off with, and we had just such a bombastic, wild story, and that was fun. But Yuck, yeah, really was the one that worked the most for me. And it's more that 2D animation style. And just the story of it worked. It was really sweet, innocent, about these kids on a camping trip. And every time that they saw a couple or 2 people about to kiss, the people that were going to kiss, their lips would light up pink and kind of like tingle or sparkle. And they could recognize, like, oh, those people are going to kiss. And then obviously they'd say, oh, gross, oh, yuck, like all that stuff. And it was just like a sweet movie to me about just like the innocence and like growing up and having that kind of like, instead of that like jovial like reaction to people kissing, it's more of like you really poured that one.
Yeah, the head is going crazy, but it's staying.
It's staying. It made it.
Sorry, my beer. I don't know. You guys can't see
that
this.
That head is going crazy.
You guys can't. All right,
you don't know what I just did. Anyway, but in Yuck, like seeing that relationship or that development within a kid of like, oh, I'm not grossed out by kissing. I actually really want to kiss this short little redhead, which I'm married to a short little redhead, so I just thought was cute, and the movie worked wonders for me. I loved all these animated shorts. Wander to Wonder has some of the most, like, you and I, like, the theater was silent, and you and I were just, like, silently choking down laughter, just cackling in the back corner, because there's situational humor, or humor where you can see someone's thought process and they're not saying anything, but you can see what they're thinking. One of these characters is good at juggling, and he sees a bunch of matches, and you can see him look at the matches, goes over to the matches, and he just starts fucking juggling them. And then he's like, I can light these on fire. And he starts juggling lit matches, and then obviously there's studio burns. It's just bombastic and weird, and it was so much fun. I think, honestly, in terms of what's going to potentially win the Oscar for the animated short films, I think that one's probably the favorite, and I'm thrilled with that. Yuck is my favorite of these 5, but if Wander to Wonder ends up winning, I'd be so happy. I'd be really happy with any of these ones winning this category. I would understand it. I think they're all beautifully animated. In terms of story, In the Shadow of the Cypress was the one that was a little bit lost on me. Like, it didn't connect with me too much, and while it looked great, I just didn't really have the best time watching it. Beautiful Men had some good situational humor, and I think Magic Candies had some like sweet, innocent moments of a kid that was alone and just didn't know how to really interact with people and play with people, and through like this candy that's basically LSD, he's like imagining things, and it gives him courage to ask someone to play with him. And it's like, these were all like really sweet stories or interesting stories that I love to see in animation. And then capping off my day, 7 p.m., 2.5 hours of documentary shorts, which was a daunting task going into it. The nominees for the Oscar-nominated documentary shorts are Death by Numbers, I Am Ready, Warden, Incident, Instruments of a Beating Heart, and The Only Girl in the Orchestra. I really enjoyed watching the documentary shorts, and I think that there are some really interesting stories that are told concisely within these shorts. I do have like a quintessential least favorite of all the shorts I saw today. It happened in this category, and it was the last short of the day, and it was Death by Numbers, which I'm going to voice my grievances in as respectful manner as I can, because this movie, or this short, is about a school shooting and the survivors of a school shooting confronting the person that caused the school shooting.
Careful, son.
Yeah. It felt... I don't know how to do this respectfully. It felt very overdone, very sappy, while the story is horrific. And I think that there are like journalistic elements of them documenting the story in a respectful way and not just showing the horrific aspects of it. They don't focus on the person that caused it. They focus on these people that are victims, and they tell their story and how they stand up against this, and how they are basically they're traumatized and going to have to live the rest of their lives as survivors of this, and that's how they're going to be kind of framed now as survivors. And there's some good things that are said, but I think that the focus of this documentary didn't work for me, and it felt too Tumblr girl. I don't know how else to say it, but it felt too... I'm gonna move on because I'm gonna make enemies, because just based on what this is about, it just the focus of this didn't work for me. The story that they're telling works, and I'm happy the avenue in which they go, but the main focal point, the main person leading this story, felt very... To call her dramatic when she's a victim sounds bad, but she's bit over dramatic. I'm gonna get canceled. All right, we're gonna move off of Death by Numbers. It's still well made, just didn't work for me. I'm Ready, Warden, really good. The Only Girl in the Orchestra was really good. You can find that one, I think, on Netflix, and it's a worthwhile watch. It's, of these documentaries, it's like the most just like easy to watch. That and Instruments of a Beating Heart, actually, out of Japan, which is my second favorite of this category, because I loved this documentary so much because it's just about this first grade class in Japan. And they all want to be a part of the graduation ceremony of them going into second grade and the new first graders coming into their school, and they're playing Ode to Joy. So all these kids have to learn instruments, and they have to go through like a rehearsal process and trying out, and it's just really sweet. And it was a documentary about just good, like, it was just a happy documentary. So being able to see something like that after seeing a documentary about a school shooting, a documentary about a man who's on death row, and a man who's wrongfully killed in the streets, it was nice to see just a kid wanting to be able to play an instrument for the incoming first graders. It was so sweet, and I loved it. My favorite documentary was one of the ones that was harder to watch, and it's about a very topical thing, so I wouldn't be surprised if it ended up winning. Not necessarily just because it has a topical thing or a message that it's trying to put across, but also it's very well done. It's told primarily through archival footage, and that's Incident, which was made about a Chicago police killing, or a police officer wrongfully killing a black man in the streets. And it's told through archival footage and through what they're able to kind of find from that event. And it's well documented, and it's devastating, and you watch just some stupidity and a lot of just horrific reactions to stupidity unfold. And it's very well done. I don't remember in terms of the order. I think this might have been the second one that they showed. And after that, I was like, well, every other documentary coming up, documentary short, is going to be competing against this one for me. Incident was so well done. Again, Incident, Instruments of a Beating Heart. Corey, again, I don't know if you're going to watch many of these documentary shorts. Those are the two I would recommend the most to you. I think The Only Girl in the Orchestra is a good watch. It's also probably the one that's the most accessible because it's on Netflix. I'm Ready, Warden is also another one that I've heard being kind of in that contention for winning this award, and it's a very well told story about a convict on death row. And Death by Numbers, I've heard it works better for some people. For me, and it could have been that it was the very last the last short of a 7-hour theater experience for me, and I'm like, I'm done, and it didn't work. But whatever. I would recommend Incident. I'd recommend Instruments of a Beating Heart. Are there any ones of these that would really are piquing your interest at least?
Yeah, I don't know. The Instruments of a Beating Heart sounds kind of sweet and nice. Like, a lot of them are kind of, like you mentioned, a little bit heavier and just delving into either current events or just very emotional topics. So it's nice to have, I don't know, just kind of a lighter one in there, it sounds like. So, yeah, I was also catching up on some Oscar stuff this week. Watched a couple movies. First one, which you very kindly lent me on Blu-ray, was The Apprentice, which is the story of Donald Trump in the early 70s and the 80s as he's taken over his father's real estate business and getting a kind of a foot in the door of the business scene of this time period. First of all, I love this time period in general. Just the 70s and 80s I think is really interesting. It was just a big boom of so many different industries, and I don't know, I just love seeing movies set in this time period.
It has that Taxi Driver feel to it.
Yeah.
Like that New York, that grittiness to it.
Yep. And I think this movie was really good. I'm very happy that both Sebastian Stan and Jeremy Strong got nominated. They deserve it 100%. Sebastian Stan does a great thing of not doing a Trump impression, not doing the Jeremy Strong, you're gay. Yeah. You know that.
He doesn't try and do the voice.
Yeah. He has the cadence down. He has the hand movements, the head movements that Trump does, the little shifting and all of his weird little pointing and fun things that he does. And that's a very fine line that you have to walk, because we've seen SNL,
do it to death.
Yeah,
almost,
so
where it's this is no longer funny.
Anybody can do a Trump impression, whatever. So I think he did a really good job of just kind of speaking in his voice, but doing the cadence and the mannerisms of Trump. And then Jeremy Strong as Roy Cohn, I thought was great too. I mean, I've been watching through Succession and just been appreciating how good of an actor he is. And then Maria Bakalova, also very good in this movie too. She's been popping up on the scene. Borat 2 was kind of her first big thing. I remember seeing her in, which was fun. But yeah, this movie really worked for me. I thought it was interesting to, especially the first half. I think they did a really good job of humanizing Donald Trump as a character. And even if you want to take it out of a real life thing and just as a character in this movie, if this was just a movie, a fictional thing, I think they did a really good job of humanizing his character. Of he starts off and he's getting advice from Roy Cohn and he wants to be successful, and you have to do some shady things to be successful. You have to kind of screw some people over, but you can also see that he cares about people and he wants to provide for people. He wants to provide for his family. He wants to make his parents proud. And I think in the second half, you see a bit more of when he is very much in the prime of Donald Trump, buying all these businesses and securing all these deals and the art of the deal and everything. And I think they lost a little bit of that, balance of the positive and negative.
And, like, the objectivity of it. Like,
yeah.
I really like this movie, especially that first half you were talking about, just because it felt more like... And I went into it, I'm like, I'm just going to see this as a fictional movie. I'm not going to even, like, imagine that Donald Trump is a real character. I'm just going to watch this movie as it is. And I think, yeah, like you said, the first half really works for me as just establishing who this man is in this movie. And as you get more towards the latter half, it starts to... And as it gets closer to present day also, it's like some of that stuff is unavoidable, but also then it starts to really push kind of a perspective of it to where I'm like, it's too hard to critique because then it's like, is this true to life? And I'm like, it gets a lot harder to watch it almost as just a movie. And that second half, it kind of loses it a little bit for me.
Yeah, but still, even in that second half, like there's so many things that I really did like about it, and just seeing this rise of this person again, like whether it's a real person or not, just like this story I thought was really interesting of seeing him and just how he approached all these different deals and how he changed over time. Like you can see the arc in this movie; it's very apparent, and so the performances are great, and I think those are very deserving of Oscar nominations and. I think you talked about it when you first saw it. Just go into this movie without the political and the current events. Just
I want to see
watch this movie and appreciate what's being presented. And if you don't like it, that's cool. That's fine. But just I think going in with an open mind is great because on the surface level, I think so many people are like, well, I'm not watching that movie because
it's about who it's about.
Yeah, so. Definitely would recommend that one. I think it is an interesting watch for sure. The other one that I caught up on this week was Flow, which has the most production companies I've ever seen.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of like Late Night with the Devil.
Oh, it's the Family Guy joke of like, all right, it's starting now. Oh, nope, that's the other production company. There's
logo.
There's 15. I think I counted them. There's like 15 production companies, which is crazy. I get it because it's a smaller movie. Like I understand it.
It takes an army, so like understandable. But it was like it's a Family Guy joke of like, holy fuck, when is the movie starting? Like, when are we done with these opening logos for these production companies?
And also, not only that, this is just the thing with every movie where they show the opening logo for the production company, and then we kind of start the movie, and they have sometimes the credits before, and they show the credits for each of the production companies again.
Just watch them.
I'm like, I'm sure this is a contractually obligated thing. Like, you have to show this twice.
Yeah.
And like, whatever, I don't care. But it's just, it was frustrating. The movie also frustrating because first of all, I don't like cats. And this movie dropped on HBO Max, and I'm like, you know what? It's one of the few Oscar movies I haven't seen that's available, so I want to watch it. This is a silent... Well, not a silent...
It's a silent movie.
It's a silent movie. It has like a score to it. But it's just like the flood that happens, and then animals get on a boat, and then the flood goes back down, and the animals are done. And I just like... I don't know. I don't... Like, what the fuck? Like, even in that synopsis, just like, animals are just doing shit. Like, it's just... What am I watching? What is this? Like, this would have been a fine animated short film.
Yes.
If this was in that category, or in the category we just talked about, like, it'd be fine. But an hour and a half of watching animals just fuck around on a boat and just kind of like walk around and look at shit.
Yeah.
Who gives a fuck? Like, I don't care. I don't get the love for this movie. I've seen some people saying it's such an emotional movie, and they're like, where? What part?
You don't get attached to these characters because they're just animals. That's the only thing that you have to go off of. They don't talk, they don't emote necessarily outside of the ordinary. Like, it's a cat acting like a cat. It's a capybara acting the way I imagine a capybara would act, because I've never seen a fucking capybara in my life. But, like, it's just animals. And like I said when I saw it, it's a very well animated thing. But it's not a good movie. It's a proof of concept. It's a short film. Like, it's not a good, concise, well-made 90-minute animated movie. There's no overarching story. It's just them living through a flood.
Yeah, I agree. The animation does look good, and I know they like the team behind this movie used a very I don't remember the specific software, but a very basic software to make the movie. So that's all the more impressive of how they did it.
In terms of how they animated the creatures or the animals and how they moved, this team put their whole dick and balls into it. Like, good job. You animated it well. But doesn't mean it's a good movie.
No. It's, again, it would be a good 15 to 20 minute animated short film. And there's, something there of just, how animals react. Like, in the animal kingdom against Mother Nature, There's something there where it's like, that's a short little concept that I'm like, I can get behind, but when it's just the same repetitive thing for an hour and a half, I just don't care. I don't get the love for this movie. We were talking earlier, I'm like, this is an Oscar season where there's a lot of movies I just dislike a lot.
Yeah.
Which normally...
There's like one or two, maybe.
Yeah, or even somewhere I'm just like, that's an Oscar movie, but I don't love it.
And like those movies, you're like, I can appreciate it even if I didn't like it.
Yeah.
Whereas there's some movies this year, like Flow, I'm like, I think that this, like, there's nothing here. This is half of a movie. It gave me a visual experience, but it didn't give me anything to connect to. It didn't give me any characters.
It's concepts of a movie.
It's concepts of a movie. There we go, with The Apprentice. But it's just, it didn't work for me. I was waiting for it to really, like, click in, or, like, and, like, I get you can kind of unpack it, like, wow, these different animals and how they would behave, but also, like, how they're working together to survive this. I'm like, yeah, I get that. But that's it. Like, I remember, so I ranked the top, the 5 nominees, and this was the bottom of the 5 in terms of the animation category for this upcoming Oscars. It was just my least favorite. It's not a movie to me. And people have been mad that I didn't like it that much. And I'm like, you know what? All film is subjective. If you liked it more, great for you, but I don't see this as a movie. Like I said, it's a sizzle reel of a company saying, like, hey, look at what we can do. Look at what we can animate, or how well we can animate. So I'm excited you watched it. I kind of... Not to say, like, I was hoping for this, but I kind of expected this a little bit, because I'm like, I wasn't so high on it. And with the clout, with the hype that this movie's been getting, and kind of the awards it's kind of collecting in terms of going into the Oscars, I'm scared of what it could potentially do. I still think Wild Robot has the edge in terms of the animation category.
It better fucking win.
It could be The Boy and the Heron. It could win like The Boy and the Heron did when we were sitting there rooting for, what was it, Across the Spider-Verse? Yeah. And it's like, fuck, you're going to say that The Boy and the Heron is the better animated movie that year? No.
I'm not going to be alive if Flow wins Best Animated Feature. I won't be alive for the next podcast.
That's concerning, because you and I are going to be watching that together.
There's a few movies that if they win, I'm not going to be alive. So,
dude, Anora's going to win a lot. Especially going off of what
You're going to have to do this solo, brother.
Yeah, it's just going to be me.
Good luck.
It's going to be me, Oscar reaction, like, yeah, so Corey's dead, guys.
That's it.
Whatever. Yeah, I'm happy you watched it, though.
I'm not.
I could have predicted this. But so you've seen all the animation,
except for Memoir of a Snail,
and I think for me that's like middle of the pack. Inside Out 2 and Wild Robot I have above that, but Memoir of a Snail I think it's worth it, especially with the stop motion. It's stunning, and it's really interesting, the humor in it. So if you watch that, or if you have time for that, I'd recommend watching that before the Oscars next week. Kind of in a throwback for me, after seeing Captain America: Brave New World last Sunday with our buddies, I was really excited to go back and watch The Incredible Hulk, which is a movie I'm very nostalgic for. I love that movie. I love Hulk as a character, which is weird to say. I grew up watching the TV show with my family. Like, we'd rent that from Blockbuster, and we'd watch that at home at night. We'd just watch episodes of it. And I love The Incredible Hulk. I think it's the best directed film by Louis Leterrier. Better than...
Fast X?
Way better than Fast X. Fuck that movie.
Wow.
It's Transporter. We talked about his filmography. Transporter is pretty good. Transporter 2 kind of sucks to me. Clash of the Titans, I fucking love that movie as a kid. But I think that this movie is a really well-made movie, and I wanted to kind of see this movie and see it through the lens of, after viewing Captain America: Brave New World, go back and see where kind of a lot of those story elements developed. Because Captain America: Brave New World, while it's titled Captain America, it is very much a sequel to Incredible Hulk, which didn't really bother me. I know I've seen a lot of gripes about it, but I watched Incredible Hulk. I love that movie. I think Edward Norton, even though he's not still Bruce Banner in the MCU, he was great in that movie, and I like the action in that movie. I love pissed off Hulk, which we get a little bit in Brave New World with Red Hulk. You get like that just visceral, like, I'm fucking shit up because I'm a monster. Whereas now we have Smart Hulk in the MCU, who's like, I'm big and it's hard to do my taxes with my big fucking green fingers. Like, I'm not. You're not a character to me. You're just a big bitch who's green. Like, you're not. I miss the rage monster. That is the worst thing the Russo brothers have ever done to the MCU, turning Hulk into a pussy and just making him just a big green bitch with glasses and like, oh, Hulk out. Like, oh yeah, kids, Hulk out. Like, fuck you. What is that? So, going back to The Incredible Hulk is a beautiful trip down memory lane where you can see a Hulk actually be a Hulk and just like, you know what? I'm gonna terrorize Harlem, which sounds bad to say, but like I'm gonna beat the shit out of the Abomination, and the Abomination's gonna stick his bony little fucking elbow in my chest, and I'm gonna yell at him, and I'm gonna beat the shit out of him, and I'm gonna fucking just the visceralness of the action in that movie works so well for me. You get to see William Hurt as Thunderbolt Ross, the first time we ever saw him in the MCU. When people are like, wait a minute, Incredible Hulk's part of the MCU, I'm like, you're stupid, don't talk to me. Not that like you need to be an elite comic nerd to understand the MCU's kind of timeline or the films in that, but if you have eyes and a brain, you could probably figure it out. The Incredible Hulk, even though Edward Norton is the Hulk, he's great. Liv Tyler's in it, and she's great. I really love that movie. John Campea he was an extra in that movie, and I'm a big fan of John Campea and all he does on YouTube, so I always try and find him in the movie. I know he was a military guy at that college scene when Hulk is fighting Blonsky. When he's still a human before he's Abomination. I'm like, where is John Campea? So I love that movie, and it was nice to see that after Captain America: Brave New World. Corey, what's your thoughts on the Incredible Hulk? Because we have a Marvel movie out, and we can talk about some Marvel properties because it's a franchise that's been so pivotal and prominent in our lives growing up. We've lucked out with Iron Man in 2008 and being able to grow up with these movies from kids to high schoolers to adults now. Yeah. Which is crazy. So what's your thoughts on The Incredible Hulk?
This is a very nostalgic movie, and yeah, I've never... Some people like hate this movie, I guess, but I've never been in that camp. Yeah, I think like not every story element works, not every character decision works, but again, like I appreciate just the 15 minutes of Hulk and Abomination beating the shit out of each other and seeing the carnage there. It's so much fun.
The cop car boxing gloves when he splits it in half and he's got gloves of a car. I'm like,
incredible.
This is the coolest shit.
You get the clap, the thunder clap. Yeah. Is that what it's called? Yep. Yeah, it's just like fun shit like that.
You get the Hulk smash.
Yeah, like you actually get it. Like
perfect.
It's so much fun. Like there's a lot of great stuff in this movie. And, I mean, yeah, just as a kid, being like, even the post-credits scene, like, oh, it's Iron Man!
Yeah.
Oh!
He's talking to Thunderbolt
we're doing
Ross.
the Avengers! And, like, that was such a fun time of just the build-up to the Avengers. And, yeah, like, this movie, the first Avengers, and Age of Ultron, we get Hulk being Hulk. Mm. And I appreciate that so much. And, again, what I appreciate about Brave New World is just Red Hulk destroying shit again and seeing that. So
big mean bitch.
Yeah, big mean bitch. But yeah, this one is a lot of fun, and I think it's forgotten by a lot of people in the MCU.
Yeah, and like I said, the visceral Hulk. While I will hate on the Russos literally only for how they've managed the Hulk in Infinity War, I like that duality of him. Like, oh fuck you. Like I get like I use you for like big issues, and you have a grievance with that, and you want to be more than just the big green rage monster. But once it gets to Endgame and it's Smart Hulk, I'm like, when can we do away with this? When can we have that duality? Because that is all like the interesting aspects of that character. So I want that back. Also, The Incredible Hulk is so well paced. It is nonstop. It is a chase movie, and he's trying to figure out shit, try to figure out how he can handle his gamma radiation and try and get that under control so he doesn't have to worry about his heart rate, so he can have sex with Liv Tyler without being like, I'm going to Hulk out inside you. I'm going to stretch you, bitch. So, like, I love this movie. I think it is one of the forgotten, underrated MCU movies. I'm sorry about that line, because you are all teeth and gums right now laughing. But yeah, I love The Incredible Hulk. If you haven't watched it in a while, watch it. I definitely recommend it. It's such a good time. I also went on and going through some more of the, not older Marvel movies, but after Captain America Brave New World, I went back and watched Black Widow from 2021. Which I forgot was directed by Kate Shortland, who I've never seen any of her other work. And I thought she was such an interesting choice to direct this movie, which Black Widow, when it came out, was kind of a novelty because we're getting into pandemic times and it's like, we just need something. And then we get Black Widow and it's like, theaters are still dying right now. Like, and as an MCU movie, I think it's good. I really enjoyed it. It's kind of similar to Captain America Brave New World. Both of those movies feel like they came out too late. They both should have came out like 3 years prior. To really like hit home with some of the story they're trying to tell and with like the character motivations with them, especially Captain America Brave New World. But going into Captain America Brave New World, after hearing kind of the response to it, which it's a movie I think I gave it a B-. You and I are both like relatively positive on. We enjoyed it. It was a fun enough time. I wanted, after hearing the bad things about the movie or negatives, I was like, just be as good as Black Widow for me. Because I like Black Widow. There's some high highs in Black Widow. There's some lows, but there's nothing really in the movie that I like absolutely hate. And that's where I was hoping Captain America Brave New World would be. And that ultimately is where it landed for me. So rewatching Black Widow, I was like, fuck, this movie is so much fun. It's the first time my wife has ever seen it, and she had really wanted to see it because she's a big Florence Pugh fan, so am I. And getting that dynamic between Yelena and Natasha and just their kind of butting heads as they kind of look back at their lives, and also like, all right, well, how Yelena has taken a prominent role in Black Widow's absence, and we're going to see her in Thunderbolts. And yeah, I really like this movie, especially on a rewatch. This is the second time I've seen it. I only saw it the one time in theaters, and now watching it just this past week. Corey, what are your thoughts on Black Widow? With this and the introduction of Yelena, how are you feeling in terms of Thunderbolts coming up in May?
I'm pumped for Thunderbolts. I think we both are. But yeah, this one was a special one because, I mean, we had a full year of 2020 without any MCU movies. We obviously got some shows with like WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier. Loki was in there. But this is the first one back in theaters, so it is kind of special and nostalgic in a weird way, I guess. Yeah, I like this movie. I think it's, again, like Brave New World, it's just a genre like within the MCU of like a spy action movie that I'm going to prefer over some other like maybe cosmic things that they do. But yeah, introducing Yelena and Red Guardian, especially David Harbour, is great in this movie. It's just a fun movie. Like, it's a good spy movie. I enjoyed it. I've only actually seen it the once in theaters. I haven't rewatched it since then. But yeah, it's always been kind of in the middle of my MCU rankings. Yeah. So yeah, it's a good watch, and I would probably compare it to like Brave New World as far as how much I liked it. It's in that same kind of range. Yeah,
I'd recommend it on a second watch because I think I would say I like it as much, if not maybe a little bit more on the rewatch. And some of that is the nostalgia of just like, wow, getting that movie when we did is like, thank you for this gift. Even though it's not the biggest thing. It's not an Avengers movie. And it's a pretty small level threat, but it's a good story. And I really enjoyed like that spy dynamic to it and that thriller aspect to it.
Yeah, Scarlett Johansson, great as the character of Black Widow. And I think she sometimes gets forgotten amongst the main Avengers of her character arc throughout the movies. I think she has a great arc.
And I contest. I still think, again, this actually brings up another issue I have with the Russos, but it's more an end game of, I think you save Black Widow and you kill off Hawkeye. I think you got it.
I disagree.
I heavily am like, I wish they would have kept Black Widow alive instead of Hawkeye.
I think it works. Her sacrificing herself. She's trying to get the red out of her ledger. Going back to the first Avengers movie, I think it makes sense. And I think the Hawkeye show actually does some good stuff with that relationship too. But yeah, good little. I'm glad you did a little MCU rewatch. It's always fun.
It was nice.
A movie I caught up on from last year, which is another one that you loaned me, was Strange Darling, a movie I've heard nothing but good things about.
Yeah, I've sucked this movie's dick sufficiently.
Nice.
I love this movie.
Yeah.
Sorry. This entire episode's gonna be me saying heinous shit and apologizing.
Yeah, no, we've
caught on.
We say a lot of things. Yeah. We started out tame in like the first couple episodes. Now you're either with us or you're not. Yeah. So whatever.
The five of you.
Yeah. Thanks, Fabian, for listening.
Thanks, Fabian.
High school buddy. Yeah.
Thanks, Jake.
Shout out to
you. Thanks, my brother Tyler that watches these every once in a while.
Yeah,
listens to these.
Yeah, thanks, guys. We appreciate it. Yeah. But yeah, Strange Darling. I really like this movie. It is a kind of serial killer movie that's told out of order. There's 6 different chapters and an epilogue, and I love movies like that where things are told not only just in chapters, but like it starts with chapter 3 or 4, I think, and then jumps to like 2, and then goes to 5, and then 1. So stuff like that where it's like Memento, that's one of my favorite Christopher Nolan movies. It's that same sort of deal where you're figuring stuff out along the way, and you get reveals later, which are really fun. Willa Fitzgerald this is a star-making performance in this movie. Like, you're going to see her pop up in so many movies because of this movie. Mm-hmm. She's so impressive. Kyle Gallner also just being in a bunch of horror movies, Smile 2, and this movie. Or Smile and Smile 2, I guess.
It's the best part of that shitty Smile 2.
It's not shitty.
I don't like it.
That's we already talked about it, whatever. the opener, the one shot, that's cool.
He's solid start to that movie. I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. Too bad.
It's a good movie. Oh my god! Oh, my charger! Oh, my foot hit the charger. It came out of the wall. Well, you know what? It's pretty fully charged. We're fine.
Yeah, solid. We'll just keep running.
Yeah, this movie is really cool. It's a really low budget, but also gritty, kind of serial killer movie
chase story.
Yeah, just fun to uncover what's actually going on here as you start out and you think like, oh, this person is this role in the movie, and then you find out things later. I think the only little issue I had is that once we get to the epilogue, and once you've had all the chapters and you've put everything together, I think it loses a little bit of steam because that epilogue goes on for a little bit longer than I expected, and I'm like, okay, I get it. I understand what it is. But it's just lost a little bit of that momentum, and like it ends fine, and like there's nothing I disliked in it as far as that epilogue goes, but the more interesting stuff was when it's out of order, and obviously if this movie was told in sequence, it'd be okay, but it's not nearly as interesting as when like how it's presented in this movie.
Yeah, and I tend to actually agree with you. As someone who loves this movie so much, that once you know the story and you get to that epilogue, it's like, it's not like every minute we spend with these characters is hurting the movie, but you can end it almost at any time in that epilogue where I'm like, yes, that's good, but it just kind of gets a little long in the tooth. I love this movie, and this is one of those times where you get that out of order kind of sequencing within the story, that structure of the film, where it flat out worked for me. Because right when it started and it went to like chapter 3 or 4, wherever it starts, I was like, this is gonna be a lot. Like, I'm gonna get tired of this. And it works so well. And I only saw this movie, when I saw this movie, I bought a ticket last minute. It was a packed theater, surprisingly. And I only saw this movie because I think Perry Nemiroff reviewed it and said it was good. So I was like, fuck it. If she likes it, I'll probably like it. It is such a good, thrilling cat and mouse game that consistently just reveals different plot elements and different character kind of motivations throughout it. It's so well done. And the movie that I've fucking gushed about the most, that my wife is like, when can we sit down and watch it? 'Cause she hasn't seen it. Allie hasn't seen it, and she really wants to. And I'm like, yeah, we'll watch Strange Darling soon. I'm happy you finally fucking sat down and watched it. I loved Kyle Gallner in this movie. I forget which chapter it happens within, but it's just the two characters sitting in like his truck talking. It's relatively early in the film, and I'm like,
the lighting is incredible, and the colors in this movie look phenomenal.
It is one of the most perfectly shot films, which I know you put a note in here, and I don't want to take credit for remembering this, but Giovanni Ribisi was a producer on the film, but also worked as a cinematographer in this film, and it looks awesome.
So cool.
It's so good. The performances are awesome. If you haven't seen Strange Darling, definitely go out and see it. It is one of the best movies in terms of like just thrilling, what's going to happen next, not knowing, not being able to really predict it. It's one of the best movies of 2024, in my opinion. While you watched a movie that came out last year, I decided, you know what, I'm going to jump like 60-something years back, 70-something years back even, and watch a movie that I remember hearing mentions of in film classes, and it being kind of a quintessential Western movie. There's a thing about me where I love buying movies and collecting movies, but sometimes I'll buy and collect movies that I've never seen, and then I will just proceed to not watch them for years. And this is a movie that I've had on my shelf for, I think, a year and a half now, that I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to watch this. Now that I've finished all my Oscar rewatch, and I have the Oscars completed for this upcoming ceremony, I can go back and start watching movies that I've had on a shelf for too long, collecting dust. And the movie I watched was High Noon, 1952, directed by Fred Zinnemann, director of A Man for All Seasons and From Here to Eternity. This is one of the quintessential Westerns. And I'm not going to say that's how I felt about it, even though it is. That's how it was kind of always marketed to me. Every film class, they talked about this and Stagecoach. It's like, those are the two films within the Western genre that really, like, that is what these stories are about. The film stars Gary Cooper, Grace Kelly, Lloyd Bridges, which I didn't recognize or notice that was Lloyd Bridges in the movie, and the relation to Jeff Bridges and stuff like that. But the synopsis of this movie, because I'm guessing not a lot of people, if you're one of the 5 people listening to our podcast, you definitely have not seen High Noon. High Noon is about a town marshal, despite his disagreements with his newlywed bride and the townspeople around him. He must face a gang of deadly killers at high noon, when the gang leader, an outlaw he once sent up years ago and got arrested and sent to jail, arrives on the noon train. And it's this entire movie of Gary Cooper going around just trying to get a posse, trying to get people behind him to stand up with him when this gang comes back to town and be like, hey, will you stand alongside me? Will you help us defend our town? And it's every town member being like, nah, dude, you're you're out shooting your coverage, you're out of your element, you don't got this. Like, and the town basically showing to him that if they don't have confidence in him or the town. And they're like, you know what, this gang's gonna roll through. You're better off just to let the gang roll through, do what they do, fuck up shit, whatever happens, and it's just the way it's gonna be. We can't stop this. And it's this man who's like, I was about to leave to have a happy life with my wife away from this town. And I chose to stay to defend it. And none of you want to support us or help me in defending this town. And fuck, this movie's awesome. It is. It's like 80 to 90 minutes. And it's so perfect.
It's great. I remember watching this in film class in college. And I just fell in love with this movie, and it became my favorite Western. And there's something so comforting. Like, I used to watch old Westerns with my dad, just like when I was like 6 or 7 years old. And it's just like that, even if it is like sometimes a tired concept of just like, you know, you're in the saloon and you're in the town. Like, there's something so just like
comforting. Yeah,
I'm just like, this feels right. Like, it's just the set also of just like a Western set of this small town, tumbleweeds blowing through,
it's
horses.
All these buildings are based down one main road that guns through it.
It's just like, there's something so just like classic about it, and just American classic. This movie's incredible. Gary Cooper is phenomenal in this movie. Grace Kelly, Princess of Monaco, is great. I love her in Rear Window. She's just like I grew up watching her in so many movies and just being like, she's one of the most like beautiful people I've ever seen in my life.
Most stunning human beings ever to live.
Yeah. But this movie has a great way of building up tension in not like a very obvious way, but like, it's just, these people are coming, and he's like, I'm trying to prepare for this and like trying to get things ready. It's just the ending of this movie is great. Also, it's just a very satisfying ending, and you're like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Like, I get it.
I'm on this guy's side.
Yeah. So it's just a classic Western. Like I said, it's my favorite Western I've ever seen, and it's just a time in Hollywood, and it was just like simple, but not in a bad way. Sometimes simple gets like negative.
It makes it sound stupid. It makes it sound plain.
Yeah, but it's like, no, this guy's just trying to defend this town.
Yeah,
that's it. And that's all you need.
It's such a good concept, and like what you said, where it's your favorite Western movie. This quickly shot up to being one of my favorites, and I'm going to tell you what happens in the ending, because I think the ending, I knew the ending going into it, and I was waiting for the movie to kind of prove to me that ending was justified and works. He stops the gang. This one dude, after getting none of his town members to stand alongside him and defend his town, he stops the gang. And they all come to like celebrate and like praise him, and he's like, throws his sheriff star on the ground. He's like he doesn't say this, but he's fuck you guys. I'm leaving. I don't need this. You guys have proven that you're not worth my time. I'm going to go spend time with my wife. Like, you guys weren't there for me the way I was there for you. You're not returning the favor. And the song in the movie, it is just like, my biggest grievance with Best Original Song at the Oscars, there's songs that happen in the end credits. The one song of this movie is throughout the movie maybe 30 fucking times, and it never gets old. It's
great.
It's so good. It's just such a masterfully well-made movie. It's one of the best Westerns you could ever find. That makes me sound like I'm talking about that hotel chain Best Western. No, best Western films you could ever watch, ever find. It's worth your time, even if you're in your 30s and MCU is all you watch, or you only like horror movies, or you don't like anything that's older than the year 2000. Reconsider, for especially High Noon. 1952, the year does not mean anything. This is a great movie anytime you watch it, no matter what year it is. So go back, watch it, do your homework. This is worth it. I'm not a person that's like, what, you haven't seen Titanic? What, you haven't seen Shawshank? This, to me, is quintessential viewing. Like, if you want to be a movie fan or a fan of film, you watch High Noon. And I'm surprised I waited this long. It's so fucking good.
Yeah, it's great. It's won 4 Oscars, including for that song.
Yeah.
And Gary Cooper won Best Actor. So it's an incredible movie. Very happy you finally got around to that. And you've owned it since we lived together. Yeah. I think you bought it just years ago now.
It's one of the most seamless made movies I've ever seen in my life.
It's great. Speaking of a movie that was not nominated for any Oscars, was The French Dispatch, Wes Anderson movie. This is continuing my alphabet watch through, so I'm in the Fs now. This one's not as old, but a movie that I've owned for a long time and just hadn't got around to. The cast is insane. It's the Wes Anderson cast. You know who's all in it. It's the Wilsons and all the fucking
Tilda Swinton.
Yeah, Adrian Brody's in it. It's just like, you know who's in this movie. But yeah, so this is essentially a collection of like 3 stories and then kind of an obituary of this newspaper, and each section of the movie is a different story that this reporter is covering. First of all, that's a great idea for a movie. Like, that's just inherently interesting. And I think that concept is great, but the execution for me wasn't as fulfilling. There's a story with Benicio del Toro in prison, and he's like doing some paintings, and Adrian Brody wants to buy the paintings. I really like that one, and that's the first story in the movie. The last couple are like these kids in this revolution at a college or something. The last one is Jeffrey Wright, like at a dinner with somebody, and then a kidnapping happens. This movie felt a little bit messy to me, and it also goes into Wes Anderson's very interesting for me, where I love the Grand Budapest Hotel, and then I like some of his other movies, and then other ones feel like somebody doing a Wes Anderson impression, but it was actually Wes Anderson doing that. And this movie feels like that to me a little bit, where it's like, no, we have to have this really weird stilted dialogue and the symmetrical shots and everything's framed up perfectly. Visually, it looks great. Obviously, Wes Anderson knows how to make a visually appealing movie, but this one for me fell into the camp of like, I don't know, I liked Asteroid City. I think that movie's good, but it's sort of in that same range for me. I don't like Moonrise Kingdom. I don't think that movie's good.
I've never liked that movie.
People gush about that movie. That again feels like somebody trying to do a Wes Anderson movie. So this one for me, I'm glad I've watched. And I just remember the year it came out. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a big Oscar contender, and then I got nothing. And I was like, oh, okay, I can wait a little bit to
skip
watch
it a little bit.
Yeah,
push down the line.
But I remember buying it like at Best Buy, R.I.P. Yeah, so I'm glad I've watched it. It's interesting. If you're a Wes Anderson fan and you haven't seen this movie, like, you're gonna enjoy this one, I think, because it's more of what you like from him.
Yeah, I remember really liking this movie, and it has a great premise, like you mentioned. It's just that framing of like an anthology, and I had this with Kinds of Kindness, which you really liked. I didn't love that much. Where you tell me that this is gonna be an anthology, I'm gonna have 3 distinct stories that don't really relate, but they're bound together by the same initial premise. It's going to immediately make me compare these 3 separate stories. And I'm going to have a best, a worst, and like a fine one. And while I overall like this movie, I'm never going to like really rush back to rewatch it. Even though I like the framing device, I like Bill Murray, I love the cast of this movie is insane. The way it's filmed, it's filmed like a Wes Anderson movie, and all of his movies are stylistically like perfect. Like, they're so great to watch, and it's just whimsical and fun. But I don't care to watch some of these stories. Like, I like the Benicio del Toro story. The Timothée Chalamet one, I was like, fine on. I like Jeffrey Wright in this movie, but there's nothing that's like, I need to go rewatch this. And there are some, like, a lot of the older Wes Anderson movies I really like, and I also love Grand Budapest. Grand Budapest was my introduction to Wes Anderson. That's like a Hosier fan saying that Take Me to Church was their introduction. I'm sorry that makes me uncool, that I wasn't with Wes Anderson from the start. But I've gone back, I've done my homework. I love Royal Tenenbaums. Bottle Rocket is my favorite Wes Anderson movie. But like, Moonrise Kingdom didn't work for me. And it does kind of feel like someone saw Wes Anderson, was like, I'm going to just take that style, run with it, and just do it. And it doesn't really give me a story that is worth watching, or a story that I'm interested in. And like, the stilted dialogue only goes so far, and that's coming from an M. Night Shyamalan fan. Like, sometimes it just fucking grates at me. This movie, while I liked it, I'm never going to rewatch it. I'm happy you watched it, because like, I think Wes Anderson, he has an interesting career, and the only thing of his that I've seen that I hated was The Portrait of Henry Sugar, which I think you and I watched together, and we're like, what the fuck is this? Why was this Oscar nominated?
Oscar winner.
Oh my god!
Yeah, Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. How about that?
Or that's what it was. I did not, couldn't fuck with that movie.
Didn't care for that one.
So, Wes Anderson, he's really hit or miss. I liked Asteroid City a decent amount, but it's like, it's not what I want more of a punch to his movies. And some of his movies, it's more just like set decorating. Like, you just watch it, you put it on in the background, and it's just like, it's pretty to watch, but like, I'm waiting for the story to really hit me with something fun or engaging or important or moving, at least. But nonetheless, happy you watched it. Kind of going off, a couple months, or about a month probably back, I sat down and watched Charade, with Walter Matthau in a supporting role. And I love Walter Matthau. I love Grumpy Old Men. I also so happen to love Jack Lemmon. I love Glenn Ross. I think Jack Lemmon is one of the best comedic actors. Watch The Apartment if you haven't. That's another fucking old movie. If you want to talk about High Noon being from 52, watch The Apartment. That's probably even older, I think. But I decided another movie off my shelf I needed to watch that I hadn't seen was The Odd Couple from 1968, directed by Gene Saks. Kind of always marketed to me as like one of like the classic comedies or one of like the quintessential comedies, and it has Jack Lemmon, Walter Matthau, it has John Fiedler, it has a stacked cast. It's about a New Yorker who's newly separated from his wife, Jack Lemmon, who moves in with his best friend, a divorced sports writer, played by Walter Matthau, but their ideas of housekeeping and lifestyles are different, night and day. And to say, I'm going to start with this, and it's going to sound like a negative. I didn't laugh once in this movie. I didn't find it funny. But that doesn't mean I didn't really enjoy this movie. I actually think I fucking love this movie. Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau, their chemistry on screen is amazing. They were born in the same hospital. They know so much about each other. The way that they talk, their exchanges, they're so in sync with each other and they're such good foils to each other. Their comedy back and forth is like, while I didn't laugh a lot in this movie, I just found these two characters endearing and interesting, and I loved their interactions and them bickering with each other. They also reminded me of when me and Corey used to live together. Jack Lemmon is OCD up the ass in terms of things being clean and being in the right spot and being perfect and being situated. And then Walter Matthau, he's laid back. He's a cool dude. He just likes to have a drink every once in a while, watch sports, talk about sports, play poker. Corey being Walter Matthau in this situation, me being Jack Lemmon, where I clean to a point where I'm pissed at myself, and I'm like, you need to stop cleaning, but I can't stop. It's just an obsessive thing that I need to do. And watching this movie, it was like watching when I lived with my best friend Corey again. So I was like, wow, this movie, like, it works for me in a way that I didn't expect. And I like seeing their dynamic, but also it reminds me of my best friend. So Corey, I don't think you've seen this, and I would recommend you watch it just because I want to see if you have the same reaction that I did of like, wow, it's just me and my best friend on screen right now fucking with each other.
Yeah, I could 100% see myself being a divorced sports writer like 10 years from now.
When he was like, when they announced his occupation that he was a sports writer, I'm like, yeah, that's Corey.
That seems like something I could do. Just sitting around watching sports, drinking beer. That sounds like fun. But no, I do really want to watch this. I love the cast in that movie, so I'll have to get around to checking that one out. Kind of the last big thing that I checked out this week was Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Season 1 wrapped up. Very weird release schedule, how they release the episodes of the show. But anyways, it wrapped up. What a fun show. This is, like, I don't have too much to say about it. It's just like a small-scale Spider-Man show, which I appreciate. It's him in high school dealing with street-level threats and just being a kid and the classic Spider-Man thing of, like, I want to, have a relationship with somebody and have friends, but I also have this power that I feel like I need to use. And I think it's great. I really like the animation style of it. It rips straight out of a comic book. There's a lot of fun villains that they have in this story. There's some fun side characters. Daredevil's in there for a couple episodes. And they set up a lot of things at the end of season 1 that I think are really interesting. They've already greenlit 2 more seasons, so it's like you got the avenue to explore that stuff. And I really love how the last episode ties into the first episode. I think it was really smart. So yeah, just like a fun show that recently we've had so much Spider-Man that's like multiverse or with the Avengers or fighting Thanos or whatever. And I feel like Homecoming is about the only other recent thing
where it's just Spider-Man.
Where it's Spider-Man in high school doing Spider-Man shit, small scale. And that's what the show was. And it's really fun. It's an easy watch. The episodes are like 20 minutes. So I really enjoyed the first season of this show.
Yeah, I only watched, I think, the first 3 or 4 episodes. I haven't kept up with the weekly releases or whatever their release schedule was. But I've heard really good things about the ending of it. So while I'm not like rushing to go finish it, I'm sure I will finish it over time because Spider-Man's my favorite superhero. And I overall liked what they were doing. I just didn't find it to be like anything like super refreshing or new or like, it wasn't like event television for me. But I think over time I'll probably, like, it's animation, they're shorter episodes. I'm relatively somewhat interested in the characters, and I love Spider-Man, so I'm sure over time I'll probably finish this. And I didn't know that they got greenlit for 2 more seasons, so that's kind of cool. You don't really hear about that with a lot of the Disney Plus Marvel shows, like where's Ms. Marvel season 2? Are they gonna do anything with that?
That.
I like that show. Or like WandaVision. Well, WandaVision doesn't really need a season 2, or Agatha season 2. There's potential for that. So it's nice to be like, hey, we're getting more of this. And I wish that we'd have more. Like, I know X-Men 97 is gonna have a sequel season, but like, can we get that right fucking now?
Yeah.
So
I'm down with like the Marvel animation branch of just kind of doing their thing of like, these may sort of connect sometimes, but we don't need them to all the time. So good little season of Spider-Man, just kind of classic Spider-Man. As far as new releases coming out this week, not a crazy week. We've got Last Breath. That's probably the biggest one. Directed by Alex Parkinson. He directed 7 episodes of River Monsters.
Is that like the Spike TV show? What is that?
It's where they're fishing for like, big fish or big creatures in the river.
Is it good?
Oh yeah, it's awesome, man. Yeah, it's great.
Okay, well, the way you're saying that makes me sound like, all right, so it's bad.
No, it's good. Like, it's just a classic, like, I don't know, it's sort of the same way of, like, diners, drive-ins, and dives. Of, like,
okay, so, wow, you have an extensive directorial background making fucking shows like that.
Watching, like, just watching that type of stuff, like,
yeah.
Just, like, people fishing for big fish. Like, hell yeah.
I'm excited to not see this trailer anymore. I've seen this trailer, I think, 30 times at this point.
It's some deep sea divers. They're trying to save somebody below the ocean surface. We've seen the premise before. Woody Harrelson, Simu Liu, they're in it. I'm not rushing out to see this one, but it's an option for you if you were interested.
Yeah, it's got an interesting enough cast. The look of it just seems pretty flat to me. Just like any shot of them in the ship, I'm like, this just looks like there's no lighting at all. Like, it's so flatly composed. I'm like, all right, well, I'm not interested. It looks like it was made by the BBC. Like, it doesn't look like there's anything dramatic happening. But if you go see it, might as well. It, like you said, it's probably the biggest name of the movies coming out on February 28th. We have Riff, Raff, directed by Dito Montiel, who I've never heard of, director of Empire State Boulevard and Man Down. The film stars Jennifer Coolidge, who has everyone's favorite voice they love to hear, as well as Ed Harris, Gabrielle Union, and Bill Murray. I've heard nothing about this movie. The movie is about a former criminal's ordinary life, which is turned upside down when his old family shows up for a long-awaited reunion. I know nothing of this movie. Corey put together this part of the show notes, and I saw it, and I was like, what the fuck's Riff Raff? So, Corey, do you know anything about Riff Raff, or are you excited to see Bill Murray in something? I don't know.
Nope. And, I guess I like Bill Murray, but Ed Harris in that movie. He's also in...
We're just running through these.
He's also in My Dead Friend Zoe, which came out of South by Southwest. I think it won the Audience Award at South by Southwest. So, I've heard some decent things about this movie. It's... about a mysterious relationship of this woman with her best friend from the army, who's a Afghanistan veteran. She comes to head with her Vietnam vet grandfather at the family's ancestral lake house. Again, Ed Harris is in this movie, so what a big week for Ed Harris. Gotta love that.
Yeah, he really thought these were going to make his career. Riff Raff and My Dead Friend Zoe.
Yeah, he's if he's in a movie, he's more than likely the villain, but we'll see, I guess.
And he's good. I don't think I've ever seen an Ed Harris performance where I'm like,
No, he's awesome.
Yeah.
But I've actually heard decent things about this movie. I know Chris Stuckman, a reviewer we both like, he reviewed this movie, and I haven't watched the review yet, but anytime he reviews something now, it's more than likely interesting.
Or something interesting about it, yeah.
So, not a huge week for releases, but a few different options for you if you were looking for something new.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited to have like a lull, because I feel like almost every week so far in 2025, there's been something that's like piqued my interest enough to go see it. Now it's like, all right, well, I could go back and like catch up on something, or go see Captain America Brave New World again, maybe, because I want to see that again one more time in theaters. Or maybe I go fucking see Dogman. I don't know. I almost saw it this morning, but I was like, yeah, I'll work on show notes, I guess. But yeah, it would be nice to kind of have a lull. Maybe I'll make it out to one of these. I don't know. I'm not too terribly excited by the synopsis of it, but with Chris Stuckman talking about My Dear Friend Zoe, maybe if I can find it somewhere, I'll try and see it. Moving into a physical media roundup. In terms of what I've purchased lately, so Allie and I, my wife, have been putting together bookshelves in our apartment for the past like 4 months. I finally this week was like, fuck it, I'm going to paint the last couple of shelves, put them into our bookcases so we can kind of get all of our shit onto them and be done. So I have all of my movies in one space, and I can see them all, and I found out that I have more space to add movies. I didn't have to cut down as much as I had to. So I went back, and a movie actually I already owned, I'm just kind of on a Marvel kick right now, was Shang-Chi, The Legend of the Ten Rings. I had it on Blu-ray. I bought the 4K release of it just because I love that movie. I think in terms of like the Phase 4 and 5 MCU since Endgame, the 3 best movies, not necessarily in this order, are Shang-Chi, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and Spider-Man No Way Home. Like, it's probably those 3 for me. that'd be at the top of the list. Do you have any kind of adjustment to that? Would you make an adjustment?
I'm just trying to think. No,
Marvels?
To the okay, I'd agree with that to a certain extent. I might throw I think I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I love Shang-Chi, and I that's with going through Black Widow again. I'm like, I want to rewatch some of these later phases of MCU movies because I don't think all of them have been bad. I know a lot of people would be like, MCU's dog shit now, and I'm like, well, they're not like firing on all cylinders. They're not all like 90 to 80% film or 100% films. Like some of them are a little lackluster or like middle of the road. But Shang-Chi, I think, is awesome. It's such a fun action film, and it has some of the best combat in the MCU. So I bought that on 4K. I also bought Dial M for Murder on Blu-ray, which is another Grace Kelly film. It's also one of my favorite Alfred Hitchcock movies. I have so much nostalgia baked into this movie. Growing up, I used to always watch Alfred Hitchcock movies with my mom because she's a big murder mystery, Agatha Christie, Alfred Hitchcock fan. So I've seen The Birds a number of times. I grew up with North by Northwest. I grew up with Psycho. But I think the one that her and I have watched the most in my life is Dial M for Murder, and I didn't have a good Blu-ray copy of that, so I was like, fuck it, I need to order this on Blu-ray and have this in my collection. So I'm excited to rewatch that movie because I think I've seen that movie probably 12 to 13 times, and it's never boring. It's such a well-made movie, even though it's, again, another really fucking old movie that's just so well done. If you're against watching older movies, go to the doctor. Corey, anything from you this week? Anything that you're looking to potentially purchase?
I didn't buy anything this week, but I did do my taxes this week, and I got some money back.
There you go.
Shout out to anybody that's in their 20s and doing their taxes for the first time by themselves. This is my second year doing it by myself. Do it on TurboTax.
Easy.
It's so easy, and you can do it for free. If you have just a normal thing where it's just like a W-2 and your rent form.
Yeah.
If two things, you can do it for free, and
it makes you feel like you're an adult. Being
100%.
able to accomplish that by yourself, even though you're using a different platform that they actually crunch the numbers, figure it out for you, but you're supplying all the documentation, so it's I did this.
I did it in an hour, and it was great, and I got some money back, so I have some moolah to buy some stuff coming out soon.
Yeah, and what's releasing this week in terms of Blu-rays and 4Ks on February 25th, we have Hard Truths, Amadeus on 4K, The Third Man 4K, Cronos 4K, and You're Next on 4K, which I love You're Next. That's actually a really underrated horror film. Cronos, I've never seen it. I know that's Guillermo del Toro, right? I've never seen that movie. That's actually probably, of his movies, the only one I haven't seen. So maybe I try and either watch that movie or buy the 4K. I don't know. Are there any of these ones that you're really kind of urgently yeah, I'll get one of them? Or
The Third Man is a great movie.
Third Man is pretty great. Yeah.
Again, another movie I watched in film class, so that one I definitely look to pick up. Amadeus, I've also heard incredible things about, and I've never seen it.
It's very good.
Best Picture winner, so I need to
very long.
need to check that one off the list. But moving in now, kind of our last awards roundup before the Oscars. So the Writers Guild Awards happened last week. We forgot to mention it, but the original screenplay award went to Anora. Adapted screenplay went to Nickel Boys. However, there's a lot of weird qualifications for the WGA. So Conclave wasn't eligible for the adapted screenplay. There's some other things that weren't in there. So it's kind of you can't look at it as a 1-to-1 as far as Oscar things because Nickel Boys, was up against other things that aren't nominated for Oscars. So just wanted to shout those out real quick. And then the Indie Spirit Awards happened last night. Always a fun little show. I actually enjoy watching the ceremony for that. A.D. Bryant has hosted this. She hosted this year and I think last year too. She does a great job.
Didn't Adam Sandler win one of the Indie
He
Spirit
won
Awards
for Uncut Gems.
And he was like,
great
this is
speech.
he was like, this is a personality contest award, not best looking. This is the personality. I love that speech.
Yeah, and it's great just celebrating independent movies too. So I always appreciate just watching this and really getting just kind of a heads up on some of these up and coming people that are going to be putting out some great things. But Anora kind of cleaned up there, got Best Feature, Director for Sean Baker, and Lead Performance for Mikey Madison. Dee Dee also had a great night, got Best First Feature and First Screenplay, which I haven't seen, but I've heard a lot of people rave about. And then, Supporting Performance, Kieran Culkin. A couple things I was very happy about. Breakthrough Performance went to Maisie Stella for My Old Ass. Very deserving.
Amazing performance. That's one of the movies I feel like you and I have talked about more recently, where it's not a lot of people saw that movie, and she's amazing in that movie. I love that movie.
And that's this is a perfect award for her to win to hopefully
elevate her status.
Yeah,
elevate her clout, basically, moving into new movies, new projects. She needs to be in more shit.
Get her in more stuff. Cinematography went to Nickel Boys. I understand that. It's very deserving. International film went to Flow, which you know my thoughts on that, so I don't have to rehash on that. And then Best Editing went to September 5th, which I love.
Awesome.
That. I'm that's not going to win any Oscars, but I love that movie is getting some love in certain categories.
The writing and the editing of September 5 is why that movie is so good. 100%.
Yeah,
you have a great story that's based around, but it lives and dies on its editing and its writing. It is such a snappy movie. It's so quick.
Yeah. And SAG Awards are happening tonight. We'll cover that on next week's show before the Oscars, so that'll kind of be our last awards roundup before the big dance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's cinematography. Nickel Boys winning. They didn't get a nomination for the Oscars, right?
No, crazy.
It's crazy and it's interesting because of how much of a character that is in the movie. While Nickel Boys didn't 100% work for me because of the way it's filmed, I wouldn't say that it's not a beautifully shot film. I completely am surprised by that, and it's kind of interesting getting it a winner here where it's missing MIA in terms of the Oscars and the nominees there. Love Maisie Stella. Kieran Culkin is just shaping up to be the front runner for that supporting actor Oscar potentially, and Honora is just further cementing its run of these previous award shows leading into the Oscars, where it's part of me thinks Demi Moore has a chance, but every time Honora wins one of these lead performances with Mikey Madison, who is great in the movie, it's just all right, well, I think it's going to go one way now. TBD on Best Picture, though. For the Oscars, they sometimes just differ, or something happens where it's just a little bit off from everything that comes before. I wouldn't be surprised if The Brutalist won. I wouldn't be surprised if Honora won. I would be scared to shit and wouldn't be surprised if Amelia Perez won. But we'll see how that kind of shapes up, especially with voting kind of happening when all this shit was resurfacing. So, one thing, the biggest news story, honestly for me in 2025 so far in regards to film, and I know a lot of people might not pay much attention to this. Some people have talked about this already because it is kind of a big thing. My favorite film franchise of all time, to this day, I will be first in line opening night for any of these films, is the James Bond franchise. Amazon recently gained full creative control of the James Bond franchise as producers Barbara Broccoli and her stepbrother Michael G. Wilson step away from the franchise. Which means we will get our first Bond film ever to not have the Broccoli name associated as a producer. Cubby Broccoli was in the 60s. He passed it on to his daughter Barbara and his son Michael G. Wilson, and they've kind of shepherded the Bond franchise into many a new era and gave us more than just Daniel Craig's run of Bond films, but Daniel Craig is my favorite, so that's what I go to. I love Pierce Brosnan and stuff, and I love the Bond franchise, and they've been shepherds of this franchise for so long, and I'm torn a little bit. When I first heard this, I was like, fuck, this franchise is going to be done to death. And there's a lot of things with this announcement of Amazon gaining complete creative control of this franchise that scares me. I don't want a Moneypenny show, like you and I joked about earlier before we started recording. I don't want fucking Felix Leiter shows. James Bond, more than almost any franchise in film, is a franchise made for the big screen. They are tentpole, epic films. They're fun. They're perfect. They're time capsules of the time period in which they were made. The Bond films have been able to last for 60 years now. They've transcended time. They adapt to things. They incorporate new things. They have, instead of having a dial-up car phone, you have a person sending drone strikes in recent Bond. Bond adapts. And I'm very worried moving forward how a place like Amazon, and now you have Bezos putting up polls of who would you guys like to see as Bond? I'm very trepidatious, borderline terrified of where this potentially could lead Bond, but also I think you can't slight, Amazon has put out Fallout. Amazon puts out good quality content. They also put out Rings of Power, which is kind of rocky at first. They're capable of putting out good things, they're capable of putting out bad things, but I just hope to death that they don't content mine and just drill this franchise into the ground with overdoing what it is, because I'm happy to get a Bond film every 3 or 4 years. Corey, what is your take on Amazon kind of sadly gaining.
Yeah, no, this sucks. It's just I said it before, but like they sold it to like a literal Bond villain, like the Bond franchise.
Yeah.
And it's just it feels like they're gonna, and we don't know this for sure. We don't know what their plans are, but
they could put great creatives at the head of this, and they can make some of the best Bond films we've ever seen.
Yeah, who knows? So, but it feels like they could strip mine this franchise and become an MCU or Star Wars thing where every year you're going to get a James Bond project, which we don't need that.
No.
Not at all. Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson, they're still going to be co-owners of the like rights to the character, but they've ceded all creative control to Amazon. So we'll have to see. I'm fine with a break in between Bond movies. Like I appreciate that 2021. It's been since the last one. I don't need one every few years, especially in between new actors for the character. Like take your time.
I love No Time to Die. That is in my top 20 favorite films of all time. I saw that in the teens in terms of how many times I saw it in theaters. I fucking love that movie. I love almost every aspect of that movie. I think that's almost a perfect Bond film. And I'm happy with how long we've been waiting for a new Bond film. And also what concerns me about this is there was kind of friction in weeks past of Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson coming out and being like these heads at Amazon who they were dealing with, who are now likely the one usurping them, taking control now. They're like, these guys are fucking idiots. They don't get the character. And now, week or two later, we find out they're stepping away. Which, it's not the most surprising thing in the world. It was like Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson were going to have to move on eventually. Michael G. Wilson's in his 80s. Barbara Broccoli is in her late 60s. Like, they're not going to be here forever. So they have to move on. But it's just the scenario in which this is happening and it going to Amazon, which, like, it still has that MGM titling. Like, MGM is still a company, and, like, Bond has been with MGM Studios for a while. They've had that partnership. There's something that I can, like, all right, well, that feels like home a little bit, but I'm still, like, you're going to have to persuade me. I'm a little terrified.
Yeah. The time will tell. We'll have to see. I'm sure there'll be updates in the coming months of what's going on there.
I'm sure now that they've got clearance to run with it, we'll get a Bond casting relatively soon.
Probably. We'll see. And we'll definitely talk about it once that happens. A little update on Scorsese. We talked about a couple weeks ago, I think, The Devil in the White City is a movie he's working on. I guess he's doing another movie too. I don't know how many more movies he's going to be able to make, but whatever. He's got this new movie with The Rock and Leo DiCaprio, Emily Blunt. New gangster drama, stars The Rock as an aspiring mob boss who battling rival clans in, surprise, surprise, Hawaiian Islands. He's probably going to do a haka dance or something in there because, sure, it's The Rock and they have to show that in every Hobbs and Shaw. And sure, fuck it, I don't care. It's... I don't know. Like, I'm always going to be excited for a Scorsese movie. The Rock being a Scorsese movie is interesting to me because we just, like, there's never... Maybe this is a hot take. I don't know if it is or not. But, like, The Rock, I don't think has ever given a performance where I'm like, holy shit, he's really good.
Oh, I disagree.
Like, I think The Rock can be fun in movies, but I'm not like, that is a performance that I'm like, that's awards worthy.
Okay, awards worthy is different from great.
See, because I'm just like, okay, what am I going to say? Fucking Skyscraper, Rampage, the game plan,
I'm gonna say,
the rundown?
I'm going to say Faster, he's awesome in. And Snitch, awesome in. He's so good in those movies.
Yeah, he's there.
Which, like, he's still doing, like, the action role, but, like, there's some depth there. It's kind of like when you, like, I'm excited. I'm actually really excited for this. I think it's weird. I never would have predicted this. And Dwayne Johnson, especially with, like, Red 1, I'm like, dude, fucking do something different. Quit being your smirking, smoldering fucking bullshit bodyguard mentality that you have. Like, give me something new. Give me something different. Which I know he has a different movie coming out that he's, like, in heavy prosthetics. Like, he's completely transformed for. I think it's an A24 film. I don't remember what it's about. But with this, I'm like, all right. This, to me, screams, while this actor wasn't a lead in Blade Runner 2049, this screams like Denis Villeneuve giving Dave Bautista a role in Blade Runner 2049. It's a larger role. He's said to be leading this role, or this movie, Dwayne Johnson. I'm excited to see what a director like Scorsese can do to a performance kind of with Dwayne Johnson. Like, how he can help mold that and shape that into something that's more than just him in Jumanji or him in Red 1 or him in The Rundown. Something that has a little bit more, like, substance to it and isn't just so face level, like, cheeky, smirky. Like, I'm excited to see something potentially new here. I'm also really stoked. I think something that's getting lost in the shuffle with it being Dwayne Johnson I almost said Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I'm trying to get away from that since it's not wrestling really anymore. Since Dwayne Johnson is like the big, like, exciting piece of news here, I can't wait for Emily Blunt to be in a Scorsese film. That's awesome. Her being an Oppenheimer, Emily Blunt is never bad. Emily Blunt is one of my favorite actresses working today. I'm not surprised by Leonardo DiCaprio being in this movie. This is what, his like 8th, 9th, 7th, I don't know, however many fucking movies he's done with Scorsese. Keep doing them. Keep doing them. Until you both die. Keep doing them. Because they're usually awesome. Except for Gangs in New York. Fuck that movie. If Scorsese's at the helm and Leonardo DiCaprio's in it, it's probably going to be good in some way. So I can't wait. I think I'm a little bit more excited for it than you are.
I actually am excited. Maybe I came off more negative, but
the Haka dance thing really sold.
Yeah, I'm just like, I did whatever. But no, Scorsese, I'm always excited.
Yeah. A news story that, it's not the biggest news story. It didn't even happen in the United States. So to talk about it, I feel like a lot of people haven't heard about it. It's just something that I clung to because I was so excited about it. But a 30-year-old resident of Bengaluru, India, sued PVR Enox, which is a major theater chain in India, for wasting his precious time by showing excessive commercials before the movie screening and causing him, in quotations, mental agony. I don't know if I agree with that, but I really like what he's doing here. He accused the theater chain of engaging in unfair trade practices, which I agree with, by misrepresenting show timings to take undue advantage of playing advertisements to the film viewers. The district consumer court ruled in this man's favor and directed the multiplex to pay compensation. And they also are potentially looking to make moves about films having to post not only like, hey, presentation time when the trailers start, but actually the film start time. That's awesome. I'm so fucking giddy about this shit. This is something I've been bitching about my entire life. I don't want to know when your fucking stupid trailers start. I want to know when the movie starts, when I have to be there, because I'm a paying consumer. I bought this ticket to see this movie, not to watch the Last Breath trailer 400 fucking times, okay? I want to see the fucking movie I came for. I don't want to come here and sit here and watch 3 AMC ads. I don't need to see Nicole Kidman's scary-ass Jack Skellington face tell me, AMC makes movies better. I need to watch a fucking movie that's 3.5 hours long like The Brutalist, but deal with 30 minutes of trailers before? Thank you to this amazing man in Bengaluru who's like, you know what, I'm going to do something here. I'm going to make a stance. I'm going to say, fuck you. You guys are taking advantage of the consumer because what? You get us in the theater earlier. You show us your ads. You make us go back to the concessions a couple of times because we don't want to sit through your fucking ads. You show a Coke ad of this couple that finds love and they drive through cars and they're racing, but actually they're just sitting next to each other in a theater with a fucking glass of Coca-Cola, which they don't have glasses in fucking movie theaters. They have cups, you dumb bitch. Take that out of the fucking ad. Anyways, I hate the way movies are represented, given to us as viewers, as consumers, when we have a right to know when the actual fucking movie starts. I don't want to have to guess. I don't want to guesstimate, like, oh, typically in the past, 20 minutes of trailers. And then I go there 20 minutes after the start time, I've missed 10 minutes of the fucking movie because they're like, I'm going to shortchange you. That's bullshit. I have every right to know when the movie fucking starts because I'm a consumer and I bought a ticket. I gave you my money. Give me the product. So, damn, I'm sweating. Okay. Anyways, I support this. I think this is great. Like a lot of things in the United States where we can order tickets and we can pick our seats where we're seating or where we're going to sit throughout the movie. That came from, I'm pretty sure, like England. Like that was in other places before the United States kind of really widely adapted that into its practices. And I'm hoping that this becomes like a fucking new wave of cinema, something that is worked into every theater chain where we actually as consumers can know, all right, movie starts at 7:15, but the start time isn't till 7:30. I'm gonna get there at 7:28.
Put a timer on the bottom part of the
or
screen,
that,
just to let you know. Hey, maybe you have 3 or 4 trailers playing. You have 10 minutes to go to the bathroom, make a call if you need, whatever. So I don't have to watch the Drop trailer for the 18th time.
Yeah, don't need to see that.
Yeah,
which instead of watching that trailer, watch the movie The Drop from 2014 with Tom Hardy. That movie's awesome. Don't watch this new Drop fucking movie about this woman on a bad date. That trailer is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever seen. I'm just going to go on rants for the rest of this episode.
Eat it.
Actually, what we're talking about next, these next 2 topics, I'm stoked about. So
hell yeah.
I just wanted to share that because I think that could have really cool repercussions, especially in the States.
Hopefully it impacts some stuff here. That'd be great. I would love to see that. Yeah, just a little bit of Odyssey news. Christopher Nolan's new movie. We've kind of talked about a lot of the casting. They released the first picture of Matt Damon as Odysseus. I think this is the first time we knew that he was playing Odysseus,
they
right?
never clearly defined who it was. So there was a decent amount of speculation because it's like, are you gonna have Robert Pattinson? Like who's your guy?
But love Matt Damon as the character. It looks like a classic Roman, the big fucking spiky red hair coming out of the thing.
Or whatever it is, or
whatever the fuck it's called.
He looks awesome.
Yeah, it looks great.
But it's like, it's the first announcement image. The best thing that comes out of this image is that we know who Odysseus is. Yeah. And I'm like, Matt Damon as Odysseus, I'm on board.
Great.
Can't wait. The images look great. I can't wait until we get a first trailer just to see what the world of it looks like. Because it looks like, I heard speculation of like, well, it's probably going to be like a modern retelling of it. I'm like, no, I think this is going to be like the Odyssey. Like, it's going to be back in those times. So I'm excited with the look of it so far. Maybe... Aside from like the big news things, I think one thing that's kind of been swept a little bit under the rug, but something that excites me so much, especially with Dune Part 2 getting delayed so long. Corey even put a dent in our wall when he found out that Dune Part 2 got delayed until 2024 as opposed to coming out in 2023 in like October when it was originally slated. Filming, per deadline, for Denis Villeneuve's third Dune film is expected to actually begin filming this year in June, which is, I think, about a year in advance prior to when they were expecting to actually start production on the film. He was supposed to take a break from the Frank Herbert franchise and walk away, but something sparks. They're coming back. I can't wait. Maybe we'll get this movie sooner because I love Dune Messiah. I love where that story goes in those books. I'm excited to see how he adapts that to kind of make it a little bit, hopefully, more viewer friendly. Just because there's a lot of interesting things that happens in that book that I feel like some people are gonna be like, well, that's kind of lackluster. But I love the story of Paul Atreides. I love to see how it continues, especially if Denis Villeneuve is the eye that is telling us the story.
Yeah, you're right. I did put a dent in our wall when Dune 2 got delayed.
You were pissed. I was terrified.
I threw a water bottle at the wall twice.
Yeah,
mine. And finally,
my water bottle.
That's correct. That was before I think you'd read the Dune books, and I feel like I remember at the time you were like, yeah, I'm excited enough for this movie. Like, it's whatever. And now it's your second favorite movie of all time. So.
I've seen that movie too many times. Yeah. But also, I'm like, I almost watched it last night too, so I'm, like, I'm itching for it. I can't wait.
Yeah, this is great. I know Villeneuve said he was going to work on something in between doing Messiah, but sounds like he's kind of flipping. So I'm excited. Give us that, and then you can do a trilogy, and then move on, do your own thing. So I'm stoked. Yeah, I can't fucking wait for that movie.
I also kind of hope, and I haven't watched Dune Prophecy, the show. I haven't watched that, but I've heard that it's kind of like the look of it still feels like it's in that same world, but it's not photographed. It's not with Denis Villeneuve at the creative head of it. So I kind of hope that once he's moved off of this, because he said that he's going to stop after this third film, after like basically the adaptation of Dune Messiah, he's going to move on. I hope that they don't try and continue it. And I haven't read all the main like 6 Dune films by books by Frank Herbert, but I know that they get fucking bombastic as hell, and I have that to look forward to as a reader. But I don't know if I want to see a Dune film made that's a part of this universe and this telling of it that doesn't have Denis Villeneuve attached to it. So I'm hoping after this third one, it's just they stop.
Bring in Louis Leterrier for the fourth one.
Nope. Probably not.
Bring in Mick G for the fifth one.
Yeah, for Terminator Salvation's attempt at fucking Dune. Anyways, regardless, a lot of yelling in this latter half of the episode. Thank you for sitting down and having some liquor drinks with us for our 17th episode of Slate Night, the Film Fan Podcast. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok for more in-depth movie reviews and news. And subscribe to our podcast if you can. Leave us a comment. Tell us how good we're doing or how bad we're doing. We'll probably listen to one of those more so than the other. In the world of film, it's not just about what happens on screen, but also about who's sitting next to you in the theater.
For Mason and I at Slate Night, that's a wrap.